We got summer coming, I'd like to share a wonderful gazpacho recipe with you. This is something quite dear to me. I mean, I was brought up with my grandmother, and she taught me how to do this when I was about 8. And here's a very simple recipe, relies entirely on the quality of the ingredients, you know. Here at Gloucestershire Farm Shop, we got all these fruit and vegetables growing in our doorstep. So the secret for this recipe is basically the quality of the ingredients, you know. We've got this wonderful tomato over here. The tomatoes I would select to do this soup would be something that has got less peeps and it's got quite a lot of flesh. So we're going to start up by cutting the tomato into pieces and putting it into a bowl, and later we're going to marinate. Now, you've probably seen a lot of recipes of this, but the way I normally do is by marinating this gazpacho. Why is that? Because by marinating, by putting salt, sugar, the olive oil, the pepper and the basil, and leave it for at least an hour, the soup will basically have much more taste later on. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So we got some holy basil over here, which we're just going to cut it through like that. We got a little bit of bread as well, any old leftover bread that you have at home, just put it in. What this bread is going to do is once you blitz it down, it's going to give a lovely consistency to it. Okay, so some old bread there. Now this salt, sugar, pepper and olive oil has been measured up, you know, you'll find out that on our recipe. Now what that happens is the sugar and the salt that I'm putting here got this wonderful ability to break down the vegetables, you know, so it's called osmotic properties, and this is going to round up all the flavors. I got a bit of cayenne pepper, which is going to give a nice bite to it as well. We're going to add a little bit of red onion. Slice it roughly like that. And we got a bit of red pepper over here, which you can just, again, cut it into small pieces and add it there. And we're going to leave this to marinate for at least an hour before we blitz it down. Then we add some good quality vinegar. We're using cider vinegar over here. We're going to use about 40 ml of a good extra virgin olive oil. And last but not least, good quality water. I always tend to use filtered water or just any sort of bottled water, which will give a much cleaner taste and a better taste to it. So that's it. We'll leave it for about an hour to macerate and marinate, and then what we're going to do, we're just going to blitz this down. Okay, so 1 hour has passed. As you can see, we've got a much rounder taste. Actually, if you taste this at this stage, you'll notice there's a lot of lovely fragrance that is kind of amalgamated all this taste. So from a lot of different tastes, we're just trying to create one single but very complex taste. Okay. Next step, if you got one of these blenders, blend it, and that will be Gazpacho Andalusia. But if you want to chop it slightly smaller that we have here, that could be just a simple salad to go with grilled fish, for example, in summer, without having to blend it up. Okay, so either pass it through and then we'll call it Andalusia, or just leave it as it is. So I'm going to put all these into a blender. Blitz. I think that will do for the moment. Just get some of the liquid in. Running away. Another good tip, always when you work with something like these, to start up. Very good, so now it splits it, so you can see nice and creamy. I'm going to pass it through what we call fine chinois, okay, or conical sieve. This just helps to remove any sort of peeps that might be left behind. It's a wonderful tool which I truly recommend anyone, you know, to love cooking to get one. So what we do then through is just pass all the gazpacho through. As you can see, it's got a little bit less red than it was before, and the reason is that we pumped a lot of air into it, okay? So eventually, you know, in a couple of, 20-30 minutes, they'll start to get this initial red color. It's just a question of time. So passing through, making sure that nothing gets left behind. So this wonderful soup. It's very important that we taste all the time before we put it on the table. Some good quality vinegar. The quality of this soup, needless to say, that will rely a lot on the quality of the tomato. So obviously, if you got the sweet tomato, you probably don't have to do much to it. But it's important at this stage that you access where we are. So I'm going to just rectify this with a tiny bit of salt. Sweetness is actually there, okay? And I'm going to put a tiny little bit of cayenne and blend in a bit more of extra virgin olive oil. So this is what we call make it gastro. So basically you got the right levels of sweet and sour. So the sweetness was there, just cover that with a little bit of salt and a little bit of olive oil just to make it too nice and palatable. Have another taste of these. Delicious. So I'm going to now transfer this into a pouring jug. And then from these, I've got some chilled balls over here. You can just put it over. And then to finish up, I'm gonna do what we call a chiffonade of basil. You could use a little bit of diced pepper, diced tomato to garnish. I've used this with a little bit of crab, langoustines if you like, or a little bit of crayfish to garnish. It will go very well with the sweetness of the shellfish. Or just simple, with some julienne of basil over the top. Can drizzle with a tiny little bit of olive oil over the top. And there you go. Enjoy it with your family. Lovely gazpacho soup, for the nice hot summer days.